Hi, this is Don Goldberg for Focus Washington, and my guest today is David Leuthold, who's the Executive Director of the Association of Settlement Companies. Now, Dave, thanks for being here. Now, the economy is obviously probably making it a lot tougher for people when they face their debt issues, and your member companies play a real specific and important role in helping them out of debt. Why don't you talk about what that is?
Yeah, today's tough economic times really have hit more families than ever before. I mean, every day there's thousands of people waking up and finding that they can't afford what they were paying on before.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's due to some hardship that occurred to them. In today's economy, loss of a job, maybe reduced hours, no more overtime, things of this nature. Maybe a family had 2 people working, now there's only 1. And so they're looking at their budget, which was fine before, and now it's in a shambles.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to figure out, what can I do? Because it's, in a lot of cases, a lot of problems has to deal with credit card debt that they're carrying.
And what are the options that people have? I mean, they've got the debt settlement companies, but otherwise their options are pretty limited.
And a lot of times they are. Basically, there's 3 options available for somebody that's having problems making their credit card payments.
Mm-hmm.
One is to enroll in what's called a credit counseling program, which has been around for decades. And that's where a consumer would typically repay everything they owe, but hopefully at reduced interest rates over maybe about a 5-year period.
Mm-hmm.
The other option on the other end of the spectrum is bankruptcy. And today a lot of people either don't qualify for bankruptcy under the new Bankruptcy Reform Act, or they just don't want to file bankruptcy. So what's left is more and more consumers are finding the debt settlement really is the only affordable choice they have today. Because what we do is we negotiate with their credit card companies so that you don't have to repay their total amount owed, but it will be accepted as good faith in total payment of what you did owe.
So if they go into the counseling option, they can be paying very high interest rates for a long time. But if they go to a debt settlement company, you guys will negotiate, or your member companies will negotiate, that debt that they owe down to a lower rate that they can actually pay off.
That's exactly right. For example, a client, our average client has about $30,000 worth of credit card debt. So if they would enroll in a credit counseling program, for example, repaying that entire amount over 5 years, they're going to be paying probably close to $37,000, $40,000 by the time it's done. Whereas with that settlement, that $30,000 debt could normally be taken care of for somewhere under $20,000.
And when somebody comes to one of your member companies, what do you do for them? What's the process?
Well, the first thing we do is we, quote, interview them. We want to make sure that this is a person that really does qualify for our program and is appropriate for it. Mm-hmm. In other words, what happened to them that causes them to be in a situation where they can't afford to make their credit card payments? And again, it's typically what we call a hardship of some sort, which we document. And then we go over their accounts with them, and so we know exactly like when their last payment was made, things of this nature. If they're current, well, why do you need us if you're current on your payments? And typically it's because they've been drawing money out of their savings, the 401k,
right,
just to keep up, and now they're just at the end of the rope and can't go any further. So the first thing we'll do is make sure they're appropriate for the program.
Mm-hmm.
And then we begin right away providing some educational counseling for them, which occurs throughout the entire length of the program, which is typically somewhere between 2 to 3 years. And of course, as the program progresses, we're constantly in touch with them because in this process, sometimes their debt will start off with one creditor and maybe be sold or transferred to somebody else. Right. And so we'll be talking to that creditor for them. Basically, what we want to do is we want to do whatever we can to work with that consumer to provide them whatever assistance they need and help them to get through our program. If that involves us talking with their creditors on a regular basis, we will do that. It involves, providing some special individual counseling for them, generally over the phone or via email. Then we'll do that with them.
Mm-hmm. And so they need to put money aside in an account that you're working with them on, and try to build that up so you can pay off the debts.
Exactly right. The way creditors work is generally when they arrive at a settlement figure with us, they generally want that payment right away, mm-hmm, or maybe over 2 or 3 payments. And generally when a person's coming onto the program with us, they don't have any money saved up. So what we do is we put them on a savings program where that money is saved up, and we get notifications of what the balance is every day. So we know when we can begin some really serious negotiations with one or more of the creditors. And generally we do that on a one creditor at a time, because as the savings build up, we'll negotiate a debt. The payment will be made to the creditor, so the savings balance goes down. Mm-hmm. So then it has to build back up again before we can negotiate another debt.
Now, there's been some criticism of debt settlement companies. your member companies have to meet, TASC member companies have to meet pretty high ethical standards. What are the types of things that you want to make sure that the companies are doing?
Yeah, well, we do. One of the reasons that we formed TASC back in 2005 was to provide standards and guidelines for member companies to follow. In fact, we want to be known as a home for those companies that do want the standards and guidelines to follow. For example, we have guidelines and standards in how they can do their advertising, in marketing to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
We have standards in what has to be in the consumer agreement that they sign. We have what we call TASC disclosures. These are important aspects of the program that must be disclosed to the consumer both verbally before they sign the agreement,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's a part of their written client agreement.
So if a consumer is coming to a TASC member, they know they're going to have a company that's of the higher standards. Now, you guys have been in favor of regulation at the state level, haven't you?
We certainly have been. That was one of the other reasons why we formed TASC, is we want the industry regulated, especially at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that if a debt settlement company is going to be working with a consumer in a certain state, that that company should be licensed and registered in that state.
Well, Dave, this has been very interesting and very helpful for consumers. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you.
I'm Don Goldberg for Focus Washington.